How do we know we should start? Because
Okay, we're
okay,
live.
we must live now. Hello, hi,
Hi.
warm welcome to Diaspora Fine Arts Art Talk. We are excited to share with you that this is our first art talk for the year. And to introduce you to Diaspora Fine Art briefly, Diaspora Fine Art is co-founded by Anthony and Christabel Yeoman. The main reason why Diaspora Fine Art was established was to show the beauty and diversity of art created by people of African descent from Africa and across the diaspora, and to make this art available and to support emerging art communities in the diaspora. So you are warmly welcome. And I would also like to introduce you to our special guest, Chigozie Obi. Hi, Chigozie. Chigozie is a
Hi.
multi-dimensional visual artist, and she works and practices in Lagos, Nigeria. And she has a very interesting practice. Her work normally consists of very vibrant colors, and they are very viturative. And she uses portraits to relay stories from personal and shared experiences. And she also focuses on the representation of Black people in their diversity. So, Shikozi, you are welcome. I hope I'm mentioning your name well.
It's okay. It's Chigozie,
Shikozi.
like
Yes,
Gozie.
Shikozi.
Beautiful.
What does your name
Yeah,
mean?
God. So
Shikozi.
my name means yes, like God will bless me.
God
Kind of
will
like
bless
God
you.
bless me. God bless me in that
That's
range.
very beautiful.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
So, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Okay. Hi everybody. My name is Chigozie Obi. I am a visual artist, currently living and working in Lagos, Nigeria. My work is based on personal and shared experiences. I really like talking about like what I feel, what I'm going through, but it's also an avenue to speak about like other stories as well, especially concerning women, Black women to be precise. And yeah, it's just like a means of self-expression. It's like I see myself as like a storyteller, and also activism here and there, but also again just to create art as well, like just being a creative at its core.
Beautiful, beautiful. Um,
Yeah.
we will just dive in. Already, there are a lot of questions that are bubbling up in my mind. So, we want to just dig deep into your practice right now. From looking at your works, your paintings, especially, it sits at the intersection of stillness and then turbulence. How do both calm and chaotic emotional states guide your choices in color, in form, and composition?
Okay. So for so my work is very like, yeah, just as you said, there's like the calm in it, there's like the chaos in it, because it does express like everyday living, and that comes with all its different things. So I feel like when I started like painting, there's usually like a thing of like, dark colors can signify, when you're talking about like something dark or like something sad or something like that. And then light colors are usually like for happier things. But sometimes I feel like it doesn't always work for me. Sometimes the painting might be like bright and all of that, but I am talking about like something that is not so great. I try not to stifle my, let me say, my colors into just, like dark is sad, light is bright. Although I still use that, but like it's not a must. And I feel like that helps with a wider, like, it helps me express myself in a wider range of just colors and like what they can be. For form as well, and for form, actually, like form is interesting because form, I think you would always find that my paintings are, sometimes you kind of know when they're sad, because I do lean heavily on like just expressing that through their body, like how they're arranged. So maybe like, head downs or like head up in a gazing hopeful way might make them
Mm-hmm.
look like, oh, they're like, they want something better, or you can see like, the pain in their eyes, that kind of thing. So I'm very particular about form because I do want you to see the person and like, kind of know what they're going through. And then there's like the eyes as well. Eyes are very important to me. I think that eyes can be very, you can pass eyes a lot, but eyes can tell like a whole story. So I do like to like, convey a lot of things like with eyes too. But I think at the core of it is just like not stifling myself too much to say like
Mm-hmm.
this is what this should be and this is only what this can tell, with form, with color, all of that. And yeah.
That's very interesting. Does that translate in how you even mix color? You know,
Does it
your
translate
colors
to
look
that?
very like your colors look also very mixed. It's not everyone who like mixes colors into details. Some just use the
Yeah.
raw color as it is.
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious as to if that translates in how you mix color as well.
I think for the color mixing, so I'm a person that I like to have people look for more in the work. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like when you have like my brown tones, there's like purples in there, there's blues in there, there's all of that in there. And also, an interesting thing about the way I do see skin tones, like with my actual eyes, sometimes I see skin tones and then I see like other colors in people's skin
Mm-hmm.
tones. So sometimes, like, your skin tone might have like a hue of pink, or they're like might
Mm-hmm.
be green, or like there might be something like that. Also, it can
Okay.
be like reflective shadows.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if you're standing next to a wall that's like green, the green might highlight off your body, or like, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always kind of like looking at people like that, and I like to add that to my own work so that there's always more to look at,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just, the basic things.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. Um, as we are talking about reflective colors and all that, it seems you really think through your work extensively. So, when it comes to your reflections, how you think about your work, the emotional shifts when they surface, how are they shaping your new work for this year? Reflecting, thinking through your work when you are maybe just relaxing and you have some downtime. How are you shaping your new work for the year?
Okay. So my new work for the year it's actually based on, I have two major projects I'm working on this year.
Mm-hmm.
One is based on the feeling of just feeling overwhelmed by being human, because I think that we all have those moments where life is just a lot, everything just feels very heavy. And I think I also talk about this like a lot in my work already, but it always comes back because it's just like a continuous, like, feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, I'm kind of like exploring that in a more, how will I say, it's not necessarily like so on the nose, like just so like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe someone is, sad and like downcast. I'm also using like animals to translate these feelings, animals that I connect with, symbols of freedom. I'm using
Mm-hmm.
stars, I'm using boxes. So just like uh I'm thinking in a more, I guess, in a bigger way than I have before. I want
Mm-hmm.
to convey these things, and like I want people to see them in a different light, but like you still know what I'm talking about. So kind of like I want to express the feelings, like how will I say this? I want to express the feelings and the thoughts in a way that is not just tied to how you're like, let me say, not too literal. Let me just say that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I've been doing a lot of thinking in that way. Another body of work of mine is very community centered. I took a trip to my village, and it really connected me to my home. I hadn't been there in a while. So
Yeah.
then I'm thinking about like community, what that means to people, what that means to me,
Mm-hmm.
and in a different way, I guess, than how I've always like, thought about it. So yeah.
Okay. Um, when it comes to community, have you been able to maybe finalize what that means? I know there might not be something when it's developing, it's always a state of becoming. but your ideas, what do you think now, currently? What does community mean to you now, currently, in terms of your practice?
Okay. Community to me is, first of all, community is not just a blood based thing. Because I think
Mm.
sometimes, like when we think about like community, we first go to like family, which can,
Mm-hmm.
is the strongest bond for sometimes for some people. But honestly, like for a lot of other people, it's not like it's more than that. I think that, people that are not blood can also be your family. So when I say
Mm-hmm.
family, it's like an extensive thing more than that. Community
Yeah.
is also my friends. Community are the people who are not my friends, but just are part of like my daily routine and
Mm-hmm.
create some sort of like pattern for me.
Yeah.
Also care for me in their own way. They don't
Mm.
necessarily even know they're doing it sometimes, but like it means a lot. So I would say, for example, I started learning how to swim last year. My trainer is very nice. She doesn't know that she has somehow become part of my community, but the way she has nurtured me in swimming, it shows like there's a level of care there that's just guides me
Mm.
in how I'm like, learning and how swimming is making me feel and all of that. If she
Mm.
wasn't as nice and receptive and encouraging as she was, I wouldn't add her to my community, but she
Mm.
is added there because of just how she makes me feel. So community is just like it's people that just make my routine and my life feel wholesome,
Mm-hmm.
worthwhile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I also realized that in your decision making, when you decide on what form your art will take or how you would like to present your art at a particular time, there's also this narrative about vulnerability. How does that influence your decision making when you are in your studio or when you are beginning something, when you are working on something?
Okay, so vulnerability, that is very, I think my work is very vulnerable. I've shared a lot of myself in my work. You will always
Mm.
find, like, down to my mom and her passing. I've opened up a lot about that. I
Mm.
think the thing with vulnerability is the more I have created work, I think I've just had to be very open with people knowing more about me than
Mm.
I guess
Mm.
usual. But I don't mind because my work is very tied to myself, and when I
Yeah.
put it out there, I also really wanted to connect with people who might be going through um, the same things that I'm going through, or have not, but are learning about a new experience. And
Yeah.
I think that it can only be done with a certain amount of vulnerability. I'm also
That's
trying
true.
to offer like a comfort space for other people. Because
Mm-hmm.
like I said, community is so important to me. Like my friends, my family, they really helped me like through a lot of like periods,
Yeah.
especially when my mom passed. Like I really, really leaned into community then. And I know
Mm-hmm.
what it feels like to have that. And
Mm-hmm.
some people might not have it, so I want them to be able to find it in my work, like just
Yeah, absolutely.
being able to date, yeah, the comfort, all of that. So I'm very, I guess I just like have a talk with myself. I'm like, okay, what are we sharing? How are we going to share this?
Mm.
Sometimes you can put out like things, but it doesn't mean you have to put everything out per se. Like you can still keep
Exactly.
some things for yourself. So that also need to think about that before
Yes.
you put it on
Mm.
the work. So I just go through that. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. So in that way, when you are navigating grief, healing, and all that turbulence, as you said, you decide what stays, what remains, what you keep private, and what you want to share to the public. But what how does that evolve when you get to that threshold of whether to share or not to share? How do you decide when it comes to that?
How do I decide?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's just a personal thing, really. Like I kind of know what I'm ready to tell and not tell.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say it's the same thing with like Instagram posts or like Twitter posts or things like that. Sometimes even like when I tweet,
Yeah.
I might tweet and like delete it because I'm like, okay, this was too much information. But it's kind of like the same thing with painting. I think
Yeah.
sometimes. I do paint things that like sometimes there's no um will I say sometimes I think there's also like too much information for painting because I might paint that and then when I put it out I'm like, oh, this is actually like, I thought I was okay with putting this out, but like it's
Mm-hmm.
out there now and I feel like so like people just know so much about me and everything. I
Mm-hmm.
try to curb those feelings though because again, like at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we go through them. I might take it back, like I might archive a post or like delete it or not just
Mm-hmm.
share it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like I guess just talking to myself and knowing what I'm okay with sharing, and then
Yeah.
if eventually I do share it and I'm not okay with it, or I feel like I let too much information out, I give myself grace and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it's not that deep. Don't beat yourself up about it too much. Just do what you need to do, which is either delete it or just let
Mm-hmm.
it be, or yeah.
Yeah, I can see that it's also interesting, to have that inner struggle, that battle, fighting with yourself, fighting even with your creations, you know. Sometimes we feel like, oh, the creations are just passive forms that are there, but in this way, you are like having a relationship. You are communicating with your work all the time. It's a battle, a struggle, relief, excitement. So these are some of the things that I see. How you are talking about your work. These are some of the things I'm seeing in your work. That's very, very interesting. Um,
Okay.
as you were talking about your mother's passing, which is very brave to talk
Thank you.
about it.
Thank you.
You have also mentioned some women that support you, some women that have been around you. How did how does that shape the visual language of your recent work, if I may ask?
Okay. So my recent work, I would say the project that I'm working on that is based on my trip to the village. There
Mm,
is a very strong there's so the thing of the women that are centered in this work are my maternal figures.
mm,
I'm kind of like paying tribute to my grandma, who I love. She's still alive. And when I went on that trip, like a lot of us came back. So her children and her grandchildren, and we
oh,
all had like
lovely.
this moment where all of us together. Yeah. So I was just like looking at her, like, you are the center of all this, came from
Mm,
all of you, and you're the core and everything. And then I also saw like some pictures of my mom. She's my mom's mom as well. So there's that
mm,
resemblance in her. Everything is tied together. And maternal figures have always been like so strong to me. Like the women in my family have done, they've held me in such a way that it's only I like to say that there's a way women hold you as a woman, there's a way women hold you that it just can't be compared to anybody else. Like my friends, my
I agree.
family, all of
Mm,
yeah. So just going there and seeing it again, I am honoring them in that way of kind of like I'm paying homage in a kind of generations way. So like me, my grandma,
mm,
my mom, and me. So that is how like the women are going to be appreciated in my work this coming in this coming work. But aside from that, like I do like to do singles as well. So definitely there will be moments of there will also be like other work featuring like women in my work. For example, I want to do a
mhm,
painting on my birthday. My girlfriends came to my house and they spent the day with me and it was so nice. I wasn't feeling so great and they lifted me
mm,
up. So, things like that will also be translated into
mhm.
paintings. It's just the women in my life just, I can't help but not paint them because they literally
Yeah,
just make everything for me. Like it's just amazing.
yeah, that's beautiful. Um, I just remembered previously you were talking about going to your home state. I'm just curious as to what memories that journey unlocked for you, and how are you translating them into a shared visual experience?
Okay. So the trip to my village, this body of work based on the trip to my village is basically going to be I wanted to feel like the exhibition is like would I say a not like you know how you feel like when you're looking through like a photo book and you see like all these like pictures and everything. I want people to
Yeah.
step into that world because I am
Oh,
bringing the memories of the
okay.
trip to life. So there will be film, there will be paintings, there will be
Mm,
prints, all of that. And when I went on that trip, there are things that I missed so much. For example, like my grandma, I hadn't seen her in I think I hadn't traveled in like 3 years, so I hadn't seen her in person
oh,
in a while.
mm,
There are masquerades as well. I'm a very big fan of masquerades, so they're like so cultural. Like they're Igbo masquerades, everything. So seeing them dance, the chase, the everything, and I got to experience for the
mm,
first time on this trip. I got to experience them like really like close and personal because
oh,
usually masquerades don't like move with women. They don't really allow women to like
mm,
come close to them.
mm,
But this time I traveled to my boyfriend's village and I got to stay like oh I got to sit there was a festival we went for and I got to like sit down with them. So my
mm,
boyfriend and his brother. And all the masquerades were just like coming towards us, like asking for money, dancing, all of that. And that was like my first close experience with them in that way. So
mm,
I want to
okay.
translate like that feeling. It was so nice, like just everything, going to another village as well, experiencing their culture,
Mm-hmm.
which was also still in my home state. Traveling
Mm,
to my own village and seeing my family. It's
wow.
just I basically just want to bring the whole shared experience to
Mm-hmm.
people. Like this is what home is to me. I hadn't forgotten, but I hadn't experienced this in a while, and I kind of want them to remember what home is to them after seeing mine. And then of course the people
Mm-hmm.
who can also relate, who are Igbo as well, can just find themselves in that. But also maybe people who are Nigerian or like just from anywhere in the world can relate in terms of culture to that experience.
Yeah. Um, Also, from what I gathered, you based on this experience as well, what forms of connection, feedback, and emotional support have been most transformative for your own growth in terms of how you even advocate for artists to build their own communities?
What forms of? I would say coming back again to since we're talking about artists, I will say my artist community. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
over the years in the art world, I've had so many like different like friends, communities, people I
Mm,
lean on. But my friends have always been majorly artists. I think it's good for artists to, while I think it's okay to have normal friends, like friends that have like other jobs and everything. I think it's good to have like a strong community with other artists like yourself, even if it's
yeah.
not like physical, it can be like an online thing,
Mm,
just
mm-hmm.
because no one really knows what you're going through, like, people like
That
and
is
so
true.
talking about like,
That is true.
yeah, so talking about things that you're going through, it hits different with artists because they
Mm,
understand, it doesn't need to be a thing of okay, you have to explain. Sometimes when I'm talking to like maybe non-artists, I have to start
mm-hmm.
explaining like some terms. Oh, what does a gallery do? What does a curator do? What does a blah 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 blah? And it's okay, but like it's different from like someone that already knows all these things. So I just
Yeah.
so I don't
Yeah.
need to start explaining all of that to them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I think it's just important to find your art community. Like I
Mm,
said again, it doesn't have to be physical. It can be online. Just people that you can
absolutely.
talk to and share your work.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, like
Very true. Yeah. So that's very, very true. I would
sorry, I
also
can't really
be
hear
curious
you
about,
anymore.
you can't hear me. Hello? Can you hear me?
Ah,
Mm.
I don't
Hello?
know what's wrong. Just gonna
Um,
leave and come back.
can you hear me? Cozy, can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, I'm just going to.
Sorry, we just got interrupted. We will join. Please be patient. he will join us very soon. Just give us a couple of minutes. Hi, can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry for the interruption, everyone. We are back to
I'm sorry.
the art talk with Chigozie Obi, and we were just discussing art community and what it means to, also have a communion with other artists and to be able to not be living on an island because human beings, we are social. And even though we are artists, we still have to, find a way of meshing with others, communicating with others, and relating, engaging with others. So you are welcome back to Diaspora Fine Arts Art Talk. And we will just continue. What I found interesting when you were talking about the villages that you visited, the ones you visited of your friends, are those villages also Igbo villages?
Yes. So it's in the same
Okay,
states,
the
very
same
close to
state.
my village.
Okay, okay. So how does the Igbo identity and womanhood and then also community, how do these converge in your work or maybe your the next works that the next body of works that you're thinking of creating? How do these the Igbo identity, the womanhood and the community, how did you navigate and how do you balance them within your work?
Okay. So I think it really depends on the subject matter.
Mm,
So I feel like for Igbo culture, I'm trying to put Igbo like culture and language into my work, like just across all the other works I'm creating. So this is something like, let me say, for example, the titling that I title my work in Igbo. And that is something that like is it works because even if I'm talking about like something else, an Igbo title still like again ties to where I'm from, but it can also
mm,
describe things so well. And the thing is
mm,
that sometimes with like Igbo translations to English can be so different. Like the way it's said in Igbo is actually a bit different from how I might translate it to you in like English.
mm,
And it might feel deeper in Igbo. Like if I was explaining
mm.
to an Igbo person, without saying it in English, they would understand it in a different way compared to how I'm
Okay.
saying it in like, English, that kind of thing. I think that's like how it is for languages generally. But I
Mm,
want people to know that I want to keep that Igbo side with me forever. I want to always like, find ways to inject it into
mm,
my work. There's also language as well. And like, I'm trying to learn more about like signs that I can also add into my work.
mm.
I've
Okay.
checked like CBDE. I've used Indebe scripts.
Mm,
And I'm trying to like work into Uli as well and just like find how I can add that into my work. For community and womanhood, I think they go hand in hand
yeah.
because, like I said, my community is built off just the women in my life, so they tie very heavily. So I think it's always easy to kind of like just join them together. And for a
Mm,
lot of women, like things that I'm talking about, like concerning women, whether it's about like,
yeah.
the societal structures, the
Mm,
gender imbalance, the, whatever
mm,
it might be, the work pay gap, like everything still kind of ties to having a community of women because with women, like talking about what we go through, when you have other women like that are supporting you, that are everything, it's
mm.
always you need a community for everything. It basically is what I'm saying. I don't believe
Absolutely.
women. Yeah, women should be like a one woman army. We need to band
Yeah.
together. So it's so easy to like tie those two topics together, um,
Mm,
in terms of like just converging it, and then like then Igbo culture now comes. Igbo is like kind of like on and off. I have to kind of like decide merging that into my work,
mm.
but like I said, because I am Igbo, I don't think I even need to explain too much as to why I
Yeah.
use. I named something Igbo. I added some Igbo elements into my work. It's where I'm from. It's my culture. It's who I am. And
Yeah.
so of course it was part of my work.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So talking about your work, I'm also very interested in your works on paper, the film, and printmaking. But then also, let's talk about emotional realism. Um, how do these projects that you've created, or some of them you are about to create them, how do these projects deepen your ongoing exploration of emotional realism?
I would say that everything is everything is still tied to like the feelings, and I think as long
Mm,
as my work is always connected to me and always connected to like things that I'm feeling,
yeah.
that will just always be a constant. Like
Mhm.
just expressing those feelings will always come in
Yeah.
play. The only difference would be that I guess I might just be thinking differently on how to
Mhm.
express them. um I think just with as I'm growing, I think again one thing that is like very important to me, just or that I'm
Mm.
focusing on now, is I guess being less literal, like not always like on the nose with everything. I don't think it's bad. I think it's great actually. I like very straightforward things, but like sometimes
Mm.
it gives you like it makes you not really expand your thinking, I
Mhm.
guess, because just like do it this way and like okay, this is like what it is straight. So now I'm just like again trying to just expand my thinking in that way. Like okay, I would do it this way normally. So how am I not going to like how wouldn't like so now okay, since I know I'm going to do it this way, I've put that like kind of like in a corner, so now I can like think about like all the other ways that I could also do it. So again, yeah,
Mm.
like it's just thinking about like describing emotions, describing those feelings, describing everything in
Yeah.
different ways as to compared to how I would. Although I still am doing it how I would. It's just yeah, that.
Yeah. Um, paper itself is a very ephemeral medium. And some people might say it's a less serious medium to use, in quote. Yet still, I mean, in your case, it still conveys precisely what you want to express. So, what makes paper a meaningful medium for expressing maybe whatever you want to say, maybe vulnerabilities or immediacies?
Yeah. And, okay, so I would say that I'm one of the people that say that paper is a less serious medium. So the thing is, paper is easier, like generally, because with canvas,
Mm,
okay, with canvas you have to like stretch canvas, you have to prepare the canvas, you have to, there's a whole process before you even start painting, and
mhm.
then like sometimes the canvas, for example, the medium also matters. Like oil is very it has a lot of toxins. I have to wear my gloves when I want to use it. I have to open up the windows. I had
Yeah.
like a nose mask. It's just like a whole bunch of things. Like um and it's just like there's so much prep time, like even when I want to think about like
Mhm.
when I want to paint, like everything.
Yeah.
But paper is like my I love working on paper. Paper is so calm. Like I
Mhm.
can literally just be in my living room and then I just want to lay on my couch and start drawing something, and I can. And it's so easy. I don't really need to move. I don't really need to do anything, and I'm creating what I want to create. Also, I get to use mediums like watercolor, for example, gouache, charcoal. They can be
Mhm.
difficult as well, but they're not just as
Yeah.
toxic as like oil. Oil needs to dry as well. It's just like more, I can just flow with it like so easily. Um, so
Mm.
that is very like it's really paper just is very, yeah, it's just the best. But at the same
Yeah.
time I do use paper. When I started off, I think I used paper more for like sketches and things like that. Like I
Yeah,
used to use it
that's
more for just like
obvious.
my personal
Yes.
studies, yeah. But over
Mm.
time I started using paper to talk about like the things that I'm talking about, like not necessarily with all the time with oil, but just like again these feelings, these emotions, like self-expressing.
Yeah.
um find that the way it just translates is so beautiful. Like I find that some people even like some people, they really like my artwork, but they always say that my paperwork is so like it feels so much like intimate, because I don't
Mm.
know, maybe it's that I created it in, the fact
Yeah.
that I didn't really have to go through all these processes before I started, all of that.
It's
So
possible. Yeah.
I, yeah, it's
Mm.
just the best. But it's like it's fun, and then it's also like it can be serious.
Yeah.
It's everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I also believe that art making in general is an adventure. You go in, it's you go in, you go on this journey not knowing the end, which makes it even more interesting because if you know the end game, it's normally not that exciting or motivating, but it's an adventure. And there you test what works and what doesn't work. And when I think about your practice, you're exploring with different mediums. So let's say, or what possibilities do mediums offer that maybe painting alone cannot?
Okay. So I think that with painting, I painted for a very long time now, like for a couple of years. And painting is great. Like painting is just, it's bomb. Like you can do everything with it. But at the same time, sometimes I get bored. Like I want to see something else. Like I want to do something else.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's like it can be texture based. First of all,
Mm-hmm.
for example, like when I use charcoal, when I use pencils, it's not the
Mm-hmm.
same texture that painting gives me,
True.
because then I'm like actually I'm actively creating the markings. The lines are different. Like everything is just different. So the way it comes out, like just the texture is different. It's not necessarily like it's nicer. It's just like it's
Yeah.
different. And also like depending on what I'm trying to share as well, like sometimes if I want to, like for example, just off the top of my head, when I want to create like a audio, like a piece
Yeah.
that is based on, let me say, spirits or leaving your body, something transparent, I would
Mm-hmm.
more likely go to charcoal, because charcoal just it gives the feeling of transparency a bit better than I think
Mm-hmm.
painting does. With charcoal, the layering as well is different. Like it's just, yeah, I don't fully know how to explain, but it's just different. Like when I think of transparency, I think more of charcoal,
Yeah.
so I would go with that. Then for example, the prints, when I think of like markings and like carvings, I would go to
Mm-hmm.
lino prints, because then I'm actively, like, the process of lino is actively like making your marks on the block
Okay.
of whatever you're using, and then
Yeah.
printing that. So I have made these markings the exact way I want to.
Mm.
So it just really depends on, like, what I'm going for, and how I want the work to look, and the kind of like texture that I'm looking for. So it's just
Yeah.
like painting can't give all of it really. So if you're experimental like me, and always like trying to do stuff, and always looking for like the next thing, or just always wanting to try out new things, then I don't think
Try
painting will
something.
be
Yeah.
fully for you. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's really really good.
Okay.
In terms of how you are pushing boundaries, you are not afraid to work with new things. You're so much involved in your practice. You are serious about it, and it's very clear and visible to see. And it has also produced a lot of opportunities for you. Um, Looking back at your art fairs, group shows, your solo shows, um, in all this studio work, studio practice, going to all these shows, these art fairs, attending these exhibitions. How would you describe the evolution of your practice?
Okay, so how would I describe the evolution of my practice? I think one thing is for certain is that I'm taking the process itself, like that is what I'm putting down a bit less seriously. When I started
Mm,
painting and working and all of that, I used to think that, like, oh my god, I needed to get like everything perfectly. Like I need to, if this hand is like this, it needs to be like this exactly. If this is like this, like
mm,
it needs to be this. And that was very, I think it's good for when you're learning how to paint. Like when you're learning how to like
that's
paint
true.
or draw, everything, like learning the basics are very important. But
Yeah.
after a while, I feel like you might need to let go of some of them to find your own style and everything, because it can be very stifling. So one
Mm-hmm.
thing that I think has definitely grown in my work is just there's a certain looseness that I didn't have before
Mm-hmm.
that I think has been evolving. Maybe in the next few years it might evolve some more. But I think now I'm also just like I'm thinking more about like how I want to present things. And I'm also like just thinking about presentation more. So even like in terms of like exhibiting and things like that, um, I want to make more of my solo exhibitions like an experience for people, like always an experience. I would think I was able to get that like with my last exhibition, just having
Mm-hmm.
like the film aspects, the smaller frames and the big paintings, and the walls painted. It just makes everything different in the way people are receiving it, and that is something
Mm-hmm.
that I want to always follow through with my work. So I think I'm just thinking about that more. I'm also like researching more. I'm trying to read more. I am. I kind of struggle with that, like just reading. I am a
Mm-hmm.
reader, but I love like fiction, novels, things like that. I'm not really like a reader like in terms of like art books and all, but I'm trying to like do that more now because it's
Mm-hmm.
very important. You need
Yeah.
to be in tune with what other people are doing. You need to always educate your mind, all of that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yes. Our world is keeps on changing. The dynamics keep on changing. Events, situation, people's ideologies keep on changing. It's always
Yes.
in terms of growth. So, like, yeah, as artists, we do have to keep ourselves abreast with the times, understand the spirit of the times. Um, yeah.
I
So,
agree.
it comes to this question. We see a lot of female figures in your work, a lot of
Yeah.
them. So we know that, yeah, your interest is in women. Um, so when you are telling your stories, how do you balance personal storytelling with your maybe your broader commentary on society and gender?
Sorry, please can you take that again? You said my
Yeah,
how
I
do I
said,
balance?
like, how do you balance this? Like, you were talking about you trying to read about, philosophies, ideologies, art history, getting yourself, familiarizing yourself with issues and phenomenologies. So I just want to know, how do you balance, your own personal storytelling, which we have talked so beautifully about today, and then with maybe broader commentary on society and then gender. How do you balance the two?
Okay. I think balancing it can be tricky sometimes
Mm,
because it's always like, tied to each other. Like I think what I talk about, for example, like with women, a lot of times like the things that I'm talking about are things that I've experienced as well. So
mhm,
it's just like okay, the point of like merging both of them can be tricky to think about. I think it can be tricky, but I think it can also be like there's also some ease as well because they are
mhm,
tied together. But sometimes like when telling the stories of like other people, because I do have like bodies of work that focus on like other women, things like that. um it's like kind of like okay, how do I think about it as I'm not just telling my own story now, but like the story of like other people are coming into this. I'm not just expressing what I'm feeling, but like what they're feeling also.
mhm. Yeah.
um I just have to like sit down and think about like things like that. Sometimes though, I think what I always do is like I kind of use myself as the starting points. So for
Mhm,
example, like I have my series A Seat at the Table, and I start off with talking about my journey as like an artist, and A Seat at the
mhm.
Table covers like just like what women in male dominated fields go through, and how
Yeah.
they navigate that. And so I started off
Mm,
with like telling my own story of just how I'm an artist and what I went through. Like art is more, over the years art has become a bit more broader. It's great, like there are more female artists that being
yeah.
recognized,
True.
emphasis on that. We still have a long way to go, but it's like
Mhm,
there's more, like everything. But it wasn't like it was less like a couple of years back. And even like when I started like painting, like working, I didn't like, for example, my social media, I didn't really used to post pictures of myself. So a lot of people just thought like I was a guy, and they said in quote, like, they thought my work was really strong, that they just didn't think a woman could paint it. Like, just different things like that. Like, yeah, like it was really crazy.
Oh,
There just like so many experiences like that. Um
mm,
people wouldn't like really take like female artists seriously, because they'll be like, oh well, you're gonna get married in a couple of years and then you stop painting, so there's no point. Just a
yeah.
whole lot of things that
Mm,
it's like I've gone through and women have gone through. So I started off like telling my own story, like to just open up the series, like, okay, this
yeah.
is like what I'm going through. This is, who I am, and this is how I've been navigating this. And then I now like branched into like other like occupations from like other women,
Mm,
collecting their stories, all of that. But I feel like it was a good way to just like launch into it, because here it
yeah.
first ties to me and like, something I'm going through, and then it now like expands into like a whole
Mm,
other thing. So yeah, like just I guess in ways like that, like a lot of them are always like tied to each other, so it can be easy to link it. But I guess sometimes the
mm,
difficult part is just like thinking about like, okay, just making sure that I am not I guess I'm paying attention to the other things that I'm saying as well, like other people's stories that I'm
yeah.
sharing, trying not to let my own feelings or everything overshadow what other people may be feeling or how they choose to share their own story.
That's true.
Yeah, like yeah.
Yeah. So I really admire your resilience. Um, how did you overcome that? The fact that you were being underestimated, how were you able to overcome that and still consistently practice and consistently create work?
Right. Oh, like it was. I feel like personally, I'm a very. I think some people will call me like a stubborn person. I don't think I'm like stubborn per se, but I think I'm very strong-willed. So when I
Yeah.
put my mind to something, I can be very like adamant
Mm,
about it. And just like I know where I'm going. I know what I want to do. So it was just like that was just like my constant mindset. Like I know why I'm doing this. I know what I'm going through. I know who I want to be. And this is what I want to do. There's really, and even now, I think like I'm more like into like other things. I like fashion, all of that. When I first
mm,
started art was, and when I even started art, I didn't know that I could be an artist. Like I always say that art saved me because it just opened up my world. It opened up my thinking. It opened up, who I was. So it's just
yeah.
like something that I was like, wow, I feel like I'm really discovering myself. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to create something like, being an artist. Like it's amazing. So yeah, once I just like put my mind to it, I was like, yeah, nothing is going to make me quit this. Like even if I see it like as a long life thing, even if I do other things, like I will always be an artist.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so I would say that that's just what it was really, and is.
Yeah. Yeah. And subtle activism is needed, isn't it? To be
Definitely.
able to overcome the pressures, society's pressures and expectations and influences is really important
Exactly.
when you are practicing art, to
Exactly.
navigate, because at the end of the day, it's not you alone who's speaking. There are people that resonate with your voice, they resonate with your language, what you are presenting. So it's
Yeah.
always good to be firm and strong. And yeah, that's very admirable. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for
Welcome.
contributing that to the art community. Um,
Thank you.
so that brings me to younger artists who are looking up, whether we like it or not. The young are always looking up to the older or the more experienced, and so when it comes to something we call burnout, with so many young artists sometimes experiencing burnout, what practices or mindsets have helped you, maintain balance and protect your creativity? Because I see you are very consistent in everything that you do. So how do you balance that and how do you protect your creativity, your art?
Okay. So I will say that burnout is my jam because I am constantly in like a, oh my god, I'm so like tired. I'm just like, all of that. But what I will say is that one thing that helps me is the fact that I work with different mediums. So since
Yeah.
last year, I've had oil painting burnout. I have not felt connected to oil painting at all, which is also why, like, I took a break from it. I haven't painted with oil in some months now, and I'm just about to get into it this year. But the great thing is that I have all these other mediums that I can fall back
Mm.
to. I
Yeah.
noticed that I had taking a break from like creating on paper, which was really, really bad to me because paper is such an essential, like, to
Yeah.
me, like in my practice, I always say that the basics are always important, like throughout your whole trajectory. Don't forget them, like
Mm-hmm.
just keep working on them. And for me, my basics are paper, like drawing on paper, watercolor on paper, sketching on paper,
Mm-hmm.
like even if it's not like actual like a sketch pad, very, very, very important. Just actively moving your hands and doing something. So I kind of like deviated from that a bit, and I think that was last year for me. Like last year was like a kind of resting year, but also like still actively doing all these things. So I felt burnt out from oil painting, but I had like drawing. I also do like digital illustration, so I really leaned
Mm.
into that as well. That was something I'd also deviated from. So I also leaned into that as well. I did some prints, all of that. And this year I feel so much more excited to go back into oil. Like I just needed a break from it to do something. So that's always something that, that's one
Yeah.
way to go about it. But then like if everything is not working out because it is, I always tell people it's okay. Burnout is, I kind of look at burnout as like breaks, because I
Yeah.
think because art is a job that is like, it's a job but it's also like a hobby. People will say, okay, I'm not working right now, but I'm still creating art
Mm-hmm.
for fun, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So you kind of never really get a break away from it. And I do think that breaks are important. In this
Yeah.
time when I don't feel anything, I just like tap into other things. I have my
Mm.
friends, so I go out with them. I go and watch like a movie. I read a book. Like I said, I love reading like novels and everything. I am an avid binge watcher of like shows,
Mm-hmm.
everything. I love animations, especially, and animations is like, they're great because it's still art, so you get to see like art that other
Yeah.
people have created.
Yeah.
It's just like actively finding other things to just like that pique your interest and can inspire you. And
Mm-hmm.
in that time, just because something inspires you doesn't even mean that you have to like automatically like work on it. You can write it down, keep it for
Yes.
later. You can marinate on it. You can just like take your time with it. Just but the thing is just like actively looking for things that will keep you interested. Even if it's not like necessarily in like, it doesn't have to be like art related. Anything can inspire your art really. But don't even
Yeah.
like think about it too much. Just do other fun things. I think the main thing is like just it being fun, taking time for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
just resting. Yeah, it's important. So those are the things that I do that like help me. Um, yeah.
That's really interesting. That's awesome.
Thank you.
When you are burned out, find other relaxing things to do that will, rejuvenate your mind, your soul, and yeah, for you to move forward. Thank you so much.
Oh, and sometimes, yeah, sorry, just to
Yeah,
add, sometimes actually, like, sometimes you have to force yourself out of the burnout. So that
that's
is
true.
like, even if you might not feel like working, you just have to work. Like, you really just have to try to work because maybe you've done all these things and you still can't work. Like, you just have to force yourself to work.
Hmm.
Sit down in your studio in front of the canvas, sit down on your laptop or whatever you used to
Yeah,
work, and just like try to do something. Eventually,
yeah,
I think it'll come back.
very true. If you just joined us, this is Diaspora Fine Art, our very first art talk with Nigerian artist Chigozie Obi. And we are just almost through with our talk. We just have the final question. If you have any questions after she answers the final question, if you have any questions at all, you can write it in the comment section. If you are still thinking about a question, don't worry. We are on Instagram and we're also on Facebook. You can DM us your questions. You can write the questions under our posts. We'll be here to try as much as possible to collaborate with Chikozi for you to have answers concerning her practice. Yes, so final question. For artists, that are exploring emotionally charged subjects, it can really get very draining. just as we were just discussing burnout, but it can actually drain you if that's the subject you keep on, pursuing and researching on. So what advice would you offer, you know, when it comes? I know you have talked a lot about community and all that, but what advice would you give to someone who is also working on emotional subjects to build maybe supportive communities that enable, you know, vulnerability, a place, a space, a safe space for healing, and then also, yeah, authentic creative expression.
Okay. So in creating community again, just like be with people. I think try to get to know people who understand what you like, understand you and like where your work is. Um, with my community, like my friends and everything, I can always talk to them about my work, about myself, like about everything
Mm,
basically, and they always
yeah.
give me that space to just express what I'm feeling. But the great thing is that because they also get me and understand me, they can also like give me feedback, helpful advice, prompts, ideas, and this is not just like relating to work, but like um, like to myself also. But also with them, I think like I can also find a place of rest,
Mm-hmm.
because if I need to not be so like emotionally tied to anything, so my work or like myself, I just have my people to kind of like get me out of that funk, or just like
Mm-hmm.
actively do their best to help me out in that way. But then the thing is
Yeah,
that you can't always just rely on like community. You also need to do the work on yourself.
that's true.
Talking about like all these things and experiencing all these things. So one way for me is like I always run to whenever I feel like a lot, I always run to my work to like express all these things and like let it go. I use my work to just like my work is kind of like a diary sometimes, like just I'm letting it all out. But sometimes I just need to actively like it has to be I kind of have to separate myself from my art so
Yeah.
that I can process everything by myself. Like I need to also have like that a strong enough like mental,
Mm-hmm.
emotional to be able to do that. So it's not like yes, my art is like my diary, I let it go there and everything, but I don't like fully rely on it. Like let's say if I wasn't able to paint now or draw now or anything, I would have to find other ways to like let it go somehow, or like deal with that. So
Absolutely.
when you're always like just dealing with like emotionally um charged subjects or anything like that, just always remember that you need to do the work on yourself so that you're able to like handle all these things. Emotions can be a lot for anybody, like what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
um then of course lean into your art, but of course also just keep in mind that yeah, your art is it might be going out. So like I said before, just know what you're putting out there and what you're not, like what you're okay with putting out there and not. Just because
Yeah.
it's your
Yeah.
work and you want to be vulnerable and emotional doesn't mean that you have to
Mm.
sacrifice yourself for you know the level of what you're ready to put out for that. It's just like discussing with yourself, and again, just try to have like a good community that understands you. Generally, just people that really get you. It's very important that I think, even just when I spoke about like artists having like artist friends, I think it's very
Yeah.
important that even the artist friends that you have actively like your work and like you. It's not just about being an artist alone.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
those people that really get you is, yeah, it's always like good. Um, yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've learned
Oh,
about
and one
community.
last ad. Sorry,
Yes.
one last ad. I will say
Sorry.
sometimes also reaching out to people. No, they're good. It's also reaching out to people that they might not necessarily be your friends, but it can be like,
Yes, true.
mentors, or even just like one-offs. Like sometimes like some people have sent me some messages that I don't talk to them, we just had that one conversation, but I was
Mm.
able to help them out just with what they needed at that point. And that can be enough sometimes, like one-way talks or just like here and there. It doesn't
Yeah,
always, I mean, community is important. We should all focus on like having that, but sometimes it just
absolutely.
might be someone more knowledgeable, someone you admire, someone that you don't even know. You just need to talk to somebody. Yeah,
Mm.
just
Yeah.
yeah.
So we've learned about community, we've learned about how we can, share our stories through different art forms by being inspired by people around us. And yeah, you just had a very beautiful art talk. If you just joined us, this is Diaspora Fine Art. And we just had our first art talk for the year with Chigozie Obi, a Nigerian artist. And yeah, have a very beautiful week. And thank you so much, Chigozie, for joining us. If you have
Of
questions,
course.
you can just put them in our comment section. You can also go to Instagram and our Facebook channels and then DM us there. We are always available for you. So, do you have any final word?
For final words, thank you for joining. I will say just keep being authentic, keep creating. Art is not an easy. It's not easy to be an artist. I always say like the art world is very, difficult and just up and down. But also just being an artist as well. There's so much like emotions that are charged that are
Yeah,
tied to just being an artist. So just keep being you, keep finding reasons to create art, find people that will help you also, that will give you strength when you don't feel so strong. And yeah, just keep at it. I believe everything will pay off at the end of the day. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So, thank you so much, Chigozie, for accepting our invitation for this art talk. We can't wait to see what you will do this year. We'll be following you keenly to see all the
Yeah.
projects that you'll be doing. We appreciate you
Yeah.
so much. And thank you for allowing us to host you. Um,
Thank you so
Thank you,
much. No
viewers, for
problem at
joining
all.
us. You're welcome. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
viewers, for joining us. And this has been Diaspora Fine Art Talk, our first art talk for the year. We will let you know when we have our next art talk. Thank you so much for making time to join us, and have a lovely, lovely week. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.